Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Consumer Knowledge and Experience series, Volume 7, Number 2. My name is Antoinette Salmata Gabi Hayes, and I am honored to be your moderator for this highly anticipated conversation. This morning, we delve into a critical and inspiring topic, from technical expert to industry leader, the journey and lessons. Whether you're a seasoned engineer, project manager, analyst, or an early career professional, today's session promises insights that could shape your leadership path in the infrastructure space. In this session, we are happy to explore the skills that separate technical proficiency from leadership excellence, real-world challenges leaders face during this transition, and practical tools and strategies to elevate your impact. We are privileged to welcome Dr. Nelson Ogunshakin, a globally respected name in the infrastructure development. Dr. Ogunshakin OBE is a dynamic corporate executive and visionary business leader, specializing in infrastructure investment, finance, procurement, delivery, and asset management. He was appointed to the board of High Speed to HS2 Limited, overseeing the major rail investment between London and Birmingham, valued at £55 billion. He has chaired investment funds 2025, the ARM Harriet Infrastructure Investment Funds, worth 250 million USD portfolio since 2015, and has led numerous sustainable power and transport projects. As the immediate past chief executive of the International Federation of Consulting Engineers, FEDEC, he drove organizational transformation, grew revenue by 150%, and championed global governance and inclusion. Dr. Ogunshakin's career reflects excellence, innovation, and a commitment to advancing the engineering and infrastructure sectors worldwide. Today, he will share his personal journey, lessons learned, and insights on moving from technical expert to industry leader. Dr. Ogunshakin, we are thrilled to have you with us today. I will now hand it over to you. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and special, good morning to you, Anton, for moderating this meeting, and thank you very much, Jacqueline, for inviting me. It is indeed really a pleasure to join you. I remember meeting Jacqueline in Lagos. It was one of the FIDIC conference, and I wouldn't say she attacked me, but she was pleasantly very nice. And when I did had invite, I couldn't refuse it because she was a very pleasant lady. Let me start by saying it's a pleasure to join you, and congratulations to your company, Construct in Africa, for the excellent work that you are doing in Ghana. I know that you specialize in engineering services, advisory, and project management, which is really good. And I must congratulate Edward Maloney, your managing director, for putting up a very good and a very commendable company in Ghana. For those who probably read a lot about me, I'll always start by saying 85% to 90% what you read about me is correct in the media. The other 15 to 20%, I cannot control the media. So it's a good starting point. I will start off by saying, for you guys, I'm really impressed that you've managed to put this series of programs together very early in the morning. It's a lot of dedication, commitment for the young professionals trying to inspire this sort of agenda, which I very much welcome. Yes, the subject from technical expert to industry leader, the journey and lesson learned. I will spend about 10 to 15 minutes just really downloading my journey, and maybe that would be a starting point. I suspect there will be some time where there will be Q&A, Anton, where you're going to throw some questions at me. Maybe that'll be more interactive and I can be more engaging. But you read a lot. You may probably asking, how did the journey started? So I will just walk you through the journey. And hopefully that should inspire the future leader that nothing is impossible in life if you set your mind at it. Let me just set some background setting. I was born in Nigeria, and I grew up in Nigeria until age of 16. Then during that period, I did the usual stuff, primary school and secondary school. And subsequent to that, at the age of 17, I moved into United Kingdom. And having said that, I always talk about, professionalism require education, education, education. So I did my, what I call the A level in a college called Brooklyn Technical College in UK. Subsequent to that, I went to Aston University for first degree in civil engineering. And as if that wasn't enough, I went for a master's degree in project and construction management, Birmingham University, in the same city. There's so many universities in Birmingham. And for those who's been around, there's plenty of university there. You're not short of ideas. And it's fair to say, fast forward 10 years later, I went back for an MBA in business administration and strategy and finance. So you can see the journey moving from technical into management. But suffice to say that I always say the only time you stop learning is when you're dead. It's a continuous professional development. And over my career period, I took some time off to go to Harvard Business School and do what I call advanced learning in managing professional services. And also, as construction company and industry changes, I had to go to INSEAD in France to learn about merger and acquisition and how to grow business. So in that sort of very short period, you can tell it wasn't just purely qualifying as an engineer, but you also learned the business of running, consultancy business. So in terms of background, that's about, cover. But I always talk about, getting qualification is one thing, but being professionally qualified is also equally important. So if you're in UK to practice as a consulting engineer, you have to be a fellow or a chartered engineer. So I qualify as a chartered engineer. And that was way back, if I can remember, in 1991. That was a long time ago. And now I'm giving my age, I can see you're laughing, you know. And that was 1991. I think, in those days when you are qualified as a chartered engineer at the age of 29, you are perceived to be very, very young. But I will come back to some practical experience in a minute. But subsequent to that, I think, 10 years later, I became a fellow. And now today I can report there's only one professional qualification that if you get it in UK, you are supposed to be in the elite. And there's only 1,500 people in UK that's got the qualification, which is the fellow of the Royal Academy of Engineers. So I'm a fellow of the Academy of Royal Engineer in UK. And that's the top. You can imagine in the Institute of Civil Engineering, there's 87,000 people who are members. And the Institute of Chemical Engineering, Mechanical Engineering, Electrical Engineering. There's so many institutions, Anton, I'm sure you have the same issues in Ghana and most African country because your system is based on the English legal system because of the colonization. So a year after, I was also awarded, fellowship of the Nigerian Academy of Engineering. This is actually quite interesting that I got the British fellowship before I was awarded the Nigerian fellowship. Maybe in time, the Ghanaian will sort of invite me to be a fellow and keep laughing. It is true. But I think, what they say is that priest is never really accepted in his own country, and you have to go somewhere else to preach. So the British need to accept it to be first before the Nigerian did. But we have 250 million people in Nigeria, and it's only 86 million people in UK, so it's relative. But if I pause for a minute and say technical qualification is important, professional qualification is important, but really what stands you well? And this is all technical part of it, and I'll come back to the leadership side. Um, I started my career working as a contractor, as an engineer. And in the early days, this is why that, it's not really how you start the journey, it's how you finish the journey. I remember my first, assignment on construction site. It was the lowest of the lowest possible job that you can ever. It was called a chain boy. In other words, you are the one that hold the end of the chain when they're doing measurement for roadworks. And in those days, nobody wants to do that. And I was tempted because I couldn't get a job. I'm black. I'm living in UK, and you don't get the opportunity. But if you are determined, It doesn't matter what opportunity you go for it. So I started that job. And believe it or not, within 3 years, I became so well known within Tarmac, which is one of the biggest construction companies in UK, to the extent that by the time I graduated, I was offered a job well ahead of my other white colleagues, which is quite good if you're really good at it. And I left university, continuing to work in construction sector, but I knew that if I'm going to be qualified as chartered engineer, I need both design capability and construction capability. So I crossed over to the other side, and I started working for consultant. And it is really in that consulting sphere that I had a better view of life in the engineering sphere. Because in the consulting side, you get to have a holistic view of the project from conception, to completion. You get to talk to the client, you get to understand the client. Sometimes the client don't understand what they really need. They tell you a fancy idea, they would like to have this, and you really have to probe them quite cleverly to understand truly what their needs are and translate it into a design and ultimately become a construction project. And in that process, you've got to help them with the planning, with the coordination, with the cost control, with the project management, with the appointment of the contractor, looking at the contractual issues, and taking that process, to the point where the asset is completed and handed over. Now, that was pretty insightful for me. And working in the consulting sphere, as you do, which is what your company does, you probably understand that you really have to hold the hands of the client most of the time. And you need to get to know them very well. And if you do a very good job, they call you back. So I think, from that point of view, I learned very quickly in my early days, getting close to the client, understanding the money, understanding the needs, rather than just engineering solution was critical. And so far as to say that, I spent 15 years when I left the contractor working for consultant. I was very lucky, but you know what they say about being lucky, you make your own luck in life. In the process of working for consultant, I had an opportunity to go and work in Asia. So I work in Indonesia. I had opportunity in Malaysia to work on airport, to work in Hong Kong and Singapore. And if you specialize in a particular area and you're in that part of the world, because the countries are very short distance flight, they're just about 1 hour flight between Singapore and Indonesia and 2 hours to Hong Kong. So you become an expert in transport. So your transport as a holistic area covers the road, rail, aviation, maritime, port. You cover the whole lot. You start to look at the logistics and you understand the trade and how to move things forward and how to build city and how to make city work. So you move from technical expert to understand the social political issue, to understand the politics, to understand how to make things work. And before you know it, the government and the politicians are calling you to advise them on how projects need to be envisioned. And I think that period of working in Asia opened my mind up into, yeah, it's not just design. You really have to understand the social economic need. You need to understand, the fabric. You need to understand the business side of it. You also need to understand the political side of it. Because I always talk about it. If there's any one profession that I don't mind losing engineer to, is politics. There isn't not enough engineers in politics. If you look at China, which is very successful, most of their leaders are, engineers. They understand planning, they understand coordination, they understand finance, they understand how to address people's needs. And through that process, I learned when I came back from Asia that I've got to understand the social political part of life. So you get lucky, you work hard, and they send you to another job. So you finish Asia, opportunity came up in Middle East, so work in Abu Dhabi, Dubai, and then you have projects in Canada, again in transportation, be it road planning, be it aviation planning. Then you have opportunity in Florida, which is all road, but you have to be lucky and you really have to work hard to get this opportunity. But let's get to the point. You've done a lot of engineering work, and you've got to a point where you start to say, you're not going to be the Brunel and you're not going to be Stevenson because those days are long gone. In every project that you do now, you need complementary skills, people from different backgrounds. You need the social, the economic, the geology. You need all of that. So the days of you becoming Nelson, the engineer, is no longer there. So you have to find a way to differentiate yourself. So you start to learn very quickly, how do you get behind the scene? When the opportunity came for me to go and do an MBA, and that was the crossover point, I took it without worrying too much about it. But I got lucky again, in the sense that the company said to me, "Well, we would like you to go and do an MBA." My comment to them was, "Well, I've already got my civils. I'm a chartered engineer. I've got a master's in construction and project management. I don't want to do a PhD. I have two children and I need to look after them. I couldn't afford to go and do an MBA." And they said to me, "Don't worry about it. We will pay your fee." I stopped and gasped. "You pay my fee?" "Yeah." "Well, what about my salary?" You said, "Yes, we pay your salary." But again, Anton, this is really when the company have confidence in you, and you really have to make sure you do it. And that was a game changer for me. But they gave me two conditions. By that time, I've already spent 7 years with them, and the comment is that we want you to go and do this MBA in the Midlands. And the reason for that is very simple. You get on very well with your clients. All your clients love you. They want you to be maintained on all your projects, and you really need to maintain all that particular relationship, which is quite critical. So you have to do the MBA in Midlands, and you have to be, very close to the client, attend all the client meeting. That was the first condition. I thought, well, I could deal with that. Second condition was you must work with us for another 2 years after your MBA. Now, this is a tricky bit. When you do an MBA, you either see it as a change of career path, or you're at a crossroad and you're looking for something different. And mine was completely different. I was looking for any of that, but the company gave me the opportunity, so I took it. And I took it straight on. I did the MBA. I passed. I attended all the client meetings, which was pretty good. And then it got to a point where I finished the MBA. They said the country is in a mess, so we release you. I thought, wow, that's interesting. So I can go free. So I don't have to satisfy the second condition. And before you know, if you're part of a bigger company, somebody spotted you and they know you have talent. And the next question was, excuse me, next question was, would you cross over to the management side of the company and look at issue of contract? Now you can see the connectivity with Philip now coming into play. And I said, contract, yes, I'm not good at it, but there is opportunity for you to learn. So lesson learned, never shy away from a new opportunity, because what you are doing in the journey, you're building a portfolio of expertise and you never know where you're going to need it. Now, at this point in time, all the experiences I had in Asia came into play. So we had a major project that was gone wrong. They needed to resolve the dispute. I was invited whether I would be part of the dispute resolution. And I can see in your part of your work you do advisory work. And before I knew it, I said it's another lesson learned. So you've got the MBA, you've got the master's degree, you understand social political issue. Now you can get into contract. Well, I'm not a contractor, but they say, well, but you got the talent to do it. And before you know it, I jumped into the process. I learned the process. I learned the legal of contract. And very quickly, I was resolving contractual dispute. I became an advisor in the area. I qualified as a mediator. I qualified as an arbitrator. So you can see the building of the technical skill set from being an engineer to understand the social political issue of resolving politics, to getting into contract and dispute resolution. And it was just in the making. And it became so evident after some time that if you understand the technical solution, you understand the social side of it, you can do the project management, but you cannot deliver to time, to cost, you lose credibility. And therefore, being able to resolve dispute become part of issue you have to ingrain in the process of designing your project. And I got into that. And before I knew, I become an advocate of how to put contract together, how to manage project, and how to ensure that project are delivered to time, to cost, and the client is satisfied. And that became a new chapter for me. Uh, Having done that with the MBA, before I knew it, my company ran into trouble in UK. It's a British company. The financial distress, and in that financial distress, the bank came in and wanted to take the company over. And few of us were asked, would you be willing to help with the restructuring of the company? I thought, well, I've just finished an MBA. I understand the contract. I understand the finance. Why not? My move from Midlands to London became evidence in 1995. So we restructured the company, we refinanced the company, we understand the banking situation, we understand how to, put company together. We started buying new other company, grow by merger and acquisition, and you move along that line. Before you know it, you became a board member of a PLC in UK. the first black person, and the company was over 150 years. So that experience was quite insightful, and it got me to a point to start to think, I can do more. I can do more. You only need to prepare to push yourself a little bit. You can do more. And before I knew it, the opportunity came through for me to represent the whole of UK consulting industry, which is the ACE. I took that role up. I never knew I was pretty good at it, but I always knew that whatever I go into, I must be better. And I represented the whole of UK consulting industry for 14 years, became the industry advocate of good practice, good governance, good standard, and how the construction industry should work. I got called upon by government to become an advisor on how infrastructure should be invested in UK, and to the extent that I became an advisor to, the Secretary of State for Treasury in the whole of UK, and that was the beginning of a new advocacy issue. And the leadership came through by being a speaker on behalf of the industry. What is good practice? What's good governance? Where should government be investing money? How should they invest money? And how should they look at infrastructure, be it energy, transportation, water? The whole lot became the subject. So you can see the transition from technical into business and from business into politics. And so when FIDIC came up, which was about 7 years ago, I did not want to go to Geneva, but they said you've done it so well in UK, it makes practical sense that FIDIC need to be sorted out, and the rest is history. I took on board that challenge and relocated to Geneva, and suddenly realized that I've got 102 countries to worry about, not just UK. In UK, you got 4 nations in one country: Scotland, Ireland, Northern Ireland, Wales, and England. It was easy. But suddenly you get to Geneva, you have to deal with 102 countries, including Ghana and Nigeria and, every other countries in the world, including America, Canada. It was fascinating, a good exposure. But the level of, dealing is not at national level, it's at multilateral level. I've started having dealing with the World Bank, advising the World Bank on procurement process, African Development Bank on where they should be investing their money, Asian Development Bank, so this transition just seems gradual. The more you push yourself, the more you are willing to do that. And you can see, as somebody who started as a humble individual from Lagos that got to Birmingham and did what I had to do, I was pretty passionate about giving young one opportunity to grow. So I'm quite keen about future leaders, and hence the idea of setting up, the what I call FIDIC Academy, the credentialing, and repackaging the future leaders within FIDIC, and making sure we rebranded FIDIC to become FIDIC Africa, FIDIC Asia, FIDIC Europe, and FIDIC America, and to actually give some credibility to those countries. So the journey is not over yet, even though I'm stepping back from what I call active role. I'm still heavily involved, as you probably said. I'm currently involved as an advisor to a private equity company based in Nigeria, with activity in Ghana. We are doing power project in Ghana, where I chair the investment committee, the Twin City. So I know about that particular project. I probably can tell you a lot of story about that project more than you know. We do power project in Nigeria. We're doing transport project. We're looking at a port report in Ghana. And I'm still involved in UK for 8 years as a board member of Transport for London, which is doing 1 billion turnover every month. All the London Underground, if you've ever been to London, I've been involved with that. The whole of London planning, I did that for 8 years. The Crossrail, which is 18 billion, I was on the board of that for 4 years. We've now delivered that. Best railway system in UK. And now we're building a big monster, which is just going to cost 100 billion between London and Birmingham, my hometown. And I'm glad that I'm involved with that project and as a board member. So that's the story so far. Even though I've stepped back from FIDIC, I'm still actively involved in a project because I'm passionate about project. And in terms of lesson learned, I'll probably say, look, for the young one, never, never limit your horizon. That's number one lesson. When the opportunity is given to you, jump at it. Don't hesitate. Jump at it. Don't turn it down because you never know exactly where it's going to lead you. Don't be myopic in terms of assuming that I'm an electrical engineer or I'm a civil engineer, I'm a mechanical engineer, I'm in the MEP, I'm a project manager, and that's all I need to do. No, Engineers are there to solve social problem. And social problem is not just about the physical asset, but it's also about what I call the soft asset. So having the soft skill, being strong, emotionally intelligent in how the politics work, understand the politics, and that's pretty different. Understand the politics, understand the corporate world in terms of how business are being solved, how business are being run. It's good if you do the design, but if you don't get paid, you're in trouble. Because if you don't get paid, you cannot pay your staff. If you don't have a company that is thriving and is doing different businesses and different projects, people don't come and join you, they leave. So for the young one, my advice is given the opportunity, do the best you can, jump into it. Look, if you don't make it, don't let it be the end of the world, but at least you try. At least you try. And in the journey of being professional, is understanding that every single stage of your career, you building a toolbox that you can always go back into at a point in time in the future and pick up the pieces and use it for different purposes. So now I am sitting around the table. We are discussing 100 billion turnover project. Technical question will come up. You can answer it. You feel confident about it. Social problem will come up. You can address it. Issue to do with human capacity issue will address it. And technology is there. The issue about sustainability, engineers have a solution. We can address it. I think it's about thinking that logical and thinking holistic is the issue. And that's the opportunity there for the young ones. So my advice is technical expert is one thing, but solving social problem is another one. And being able to combine the two makes you a much rounded, much better individual, much better engineer, and than you ever think about. So if you ever have the opportunity, take it. Somebody will stretch you. And my saying to my children, and I haven't talked about that, I've got three lovely children and two grandchildren, or three grandchildren, let me put it this way, is what don't kill you make you stronger. If you have the opportunity to do something different, do it. Challenge yourself, challenge your mind, and be prepared to, push the envelope, stretch yourself a little bit. And you find that, if you are still in the elastic mode rather than the rigid mode, you bounce back. So it's always very good to do new things and to experiment new things. And all you're doing in the process of that journey is making yourself much better. So I'll stop at that point, and then, let you ask the question that you may want to ask, and I'll try and put some color on some of the issues at that point. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Okun. So far, we've heard a lot from you. So in the next 20 minutes, we will have a fireside conversation, allowing our audience to have a deeper understanding of your journey and then ask questions that would support their professional growth. So I would want to start with background again. I know you made mention of starting off as the chain boy. And yes, I would want to know that looking back, what actually inspired your journey into civil engineering?
Yeah. You know what they say about family. Family is always the biggest influence in anybody's life. I I I I I was inspired into engineering because my dad was an engineer.
Okay.
And I was very little when he came to UK, and he always sent me photograph of being on a project site, which is hard. And in those days, if you know UK very well, there's a company called Tarmac. They have, seven different companies. So I used to see seven T's. I never knew what it actually means until I got to UK. But I've always been fascinated about engineering because my father happens to be an engineer. So it was the biggest influence in my life. And I did ask my grandmother who brought me up and said, why does daddy does what he does? And said, well, your father was the planner for the king in your hometown. And if you ever go to your hometown, there's a placard there that your dad's name is on. And they call him the engineer, the architect, the planner. And he was very famous for that. And that really inspired me that I want to be like that. And to be honest, I didn't actually get to know him because he died when I was very young. But that was my inspiration. And I think my grandmother used to say, son, as long as people live, they need water, they need accommodation, they need shelter, they need that. And if you are in that profession, there will always be a job for you. That was what inspired me.
Thank you so much. Thank you
Merci.
so much. Oh, Daniel. Daniel I was actually going to start with my questions, then I invite my audience in later. So just give us a few more minutes. I would invite you in, Daniel.
Okay, thank you. I can't wait to ask my question.
I know, because it's amazing how most engineers I have also encountered, if you would want to find inspired them to become engineers, they was an engineer, so I just fell in love with the job. So, and Daniel is one of them. He would tell you his story. I became an engineer today because my dad was an engineer, and I used to follow him to site and saw all the amazing works he was doing. So kudos to our fathers, and I can't equally wait to hear people say, okay, because my mom was an engineer, so I also decided to toe that line. Gradually, we would get there. Yes. So my second question, still on our background, I would want to know what habits or mindsets helped you out as a technical expert early in your career.
Um, I think really the attitude of can do, just
Mhm.
that's what's a positive attitude that you can do. There are obstacles in life as you travel the journey of life. And I suspect when you are living in a white dominated area, it's even more challenging because
Mhm.
of the perception. Then I posted the comment about Chain Boy earlier on, and some people probably don't understand that. Let me elaborate it on that. When I was doing my first degree, we were all white with the exception of two, and one of them is a Caribbean guy, and the other guy is me. And we supposed to get summer job to get us to training, and all the white guy got appointment. I never had one. The other black chap, walk away from the course because he couldn't get any. He didn't come back at all after the first year because he said this industry is so discriminating. No, you need to find your own niche. You need to find your own thing. You need to be determined. Um, the obstacles are always there, even though when you are in a black dominated country, people discriminate between north and south or east or west in the same country. And when you're in a country where it's actually white dominated and black are seen to be secondary, you then have to be even more stronger, more determined. And so the bit of trade that you probably said is that it's determination of I can do. And that was instilled in me by my grandmother, who always said to me, son, the harder you try, the better you become. And doesn't matter what the difficulty is, just always look over and above that and find a way out rather than find an excuse why you shouldn't do it. So try not to be a quitter. Whatever the difficulties, try not to be a quitter. Be very strong opinion on what you want to do. If the one door shuts, find another way around. And I've always said all my life, and the same principle still apply to me. And I preach this to my three children and to my three grandchildren, that every disappointment in all my life has always been a blessing in disguise. You just need to find your blessing, and you need to be determined. You will find it.
Great. So I remember during the 2023 FIDIC conference in Zambia. So during the Future Leaders session, you made mention, you cited an example about future leaders being out there, and you made mention that your son, as at then, told you that, well, if we are not, as youth, are not being invited to the table, we would
You
actually
create
bring
your own table.
our,
You create
yes,
your own
and
table.
yes,
Yeah.
it was one that resonated so well with me. And since then, I mean, every opportunity I had, I was able to also show my worth and my value. So
Well,
thank
I'm
you.
so glad. I'm so glad that you remember that speech.
I
Promise you that. Yeah. Yeah.
clearly
He
remember.
always he now tells me that he said I'm gonna turn my L's into W. You know.
Whoa.
Yeah, it means he's
Okay.
gonna turn all his losses into winnings. So he's a
Wow.
very smart kid. He's a very smart.
Yes, and
So,
another one to be kept for
and
reference. Yes.
you're
Okay.
absolutely
So,
right. I mean,
yes.
life is too short,
Yeah.
and you just won't have to learn to be creative. And it's always I've said it several times. I'm glad that you remember that word in Zambia. I've used it again and again.
Yeah.
The joke within the grown up in the industry is always, oh, if you're not at the table, then you become part of the menu. They will eat you alive,
Yeah.
basically. And he said to me, "That's very simple. If they don't invite you to the table, you create your own table. It's simple." And that's profound. And that's what
Yeah.
it does. That's what it does. It's profound. And to me, I will share that to all the young ones. Don't ever get distracted by shit. If you don't
Mhm.
get the opportunity, create your own opportunity and be determined. Now he tells me, Dan, I've got to turn all my L's into my W's. And I said, fine. That's good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
All
good one. So I'm in your hand.
all right. Thank you. So again, I would want to know what was the defining moment when you realized you were becoming a leader? You were changing gradually from an expert into leadership. That defining moment.
It's very difficult, Anton, to actually, so what it is. I think the point that I made when I said to you that I finished the MBA and I
Mhm.
went back into my company and I said, I've ticked one of the two conditions. And the second one is I now need to come and work for 2 years. And at that point, they said the company is in financial distress, your department is going down, and you've got to then leave the company. And then another department knew of my qualification, knows of me very well, to the extent that they said they trusted me and they gave me an opportunity to start a new, branch in Coventry dealing with claims. And at that point, I was the second candidate from that department working on that assignment. Before I knew it, I became an advisor to the client. And before I knew it, we had two staff on that. We went to 15 staff. The billing on a weekly, on a monthly basis was growing. Before I knew it, I was more or less giving the direction of the project, where the project is going to go, but beyond the project into what else the client can do. At that point, I thought, wow, everything I've learned from my MBA is coming to play. And then we then ran into trouble in the company, corporate wise. We had to restructure the company. Even the CEO, who happens to be my boss from Hong Kong, did not know a lot about the UK market. And I became the person who speak on behalf of the company. I had the authority and the audacity to start to give direction. And before I knew it, I was invited to the board at the PLC. That was the crossover, Anton. That was the crossover for me that I thought, okay, I think my technical skill is taken for granted now.
Yeah.
I am now into different sphere or corporate world, understanding how business are run. But more important, I need to understand the business landscape, the politics, the environmental issue, the social needs, and all of that. And all of that became, a part of the tools that I was building up. And so it was that crossover for me, being told you haven't got a job, then start building a team. You became a leader on that team, very quickly helping to help the company restructure. That was the crossover for me. And at that point, there was no U-turn. It was just going forward. Every opportunity that came, I took it. Every opportunity that came, I took it. And all of that was giving more and more confidence that I can do more, I can do more. It was stretching for the family, if I can put that. My wife found it very difficult to find out that she hardly see me. She became a single mother because I'm never at home. I'm always in London. I'm always dealing with this, and I'll come back and tell the story. But I always make sure every Friday I'm back home to see my children. So that was my defining moment, if I can actually put it that way. From then onward, I understand engineering. I understand client. I understand business. I understand the social issue. I became somebody that people want to listen to. And from that point of view, there was no going back. There was no going back. And I kept on learning more. My capacity to deal with big, more complex issue become more open. The more I try, the more I can do. The more I wanted to do. And in fact, sometimes I'm struggling to contain myself. Everybody brings it on. I say, bring
Mhm.
it on. And you can imagine when you are actually running FIDIC with 102 countries being responsible, at the same time being a board member of Transport for London for 8 years, at the same time being on 18 billion business. So the point I raised earlier on is a crossover for me was being able to actualize my MBA, that I have the capacity. The MBA was just really an eye opener for me, that I have the capability, gave me the confidence, but actually putting that into practice. Because normally when you come back for such a situation, you are told you haven't got a job. you put your hands in your head and say, oh my God, what am I going to do to look after my family? But I, like my son said, turn your L into W. That's exactly what I did.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I did. That was the crossover for me, and I haven't looked back since then. I hope that's been helpful.
Yes, very helpful. So I would want to follow up. What I am getting from this is that it had to take self-actualization and self-realization plus your knowledge from your MBA to actually transition into this leadership role. Because if you hadn't accepted the challenge and taken it up, well,
Well, I think if I pause for a minute, I think everybody have it in them.
mm,
Just finding that point where you make that switch. First of all, is when I said I had a master's degree, I'm chartered engineer. Why do I need an MBA? Somebody
yeah.
had faith in me that I took that challenge on, and that was another switch. Come out and said, no, the door is shut. You then switch again. Then you find that actually your ability to make that switch, is your actually say self-actualization. You have the skill, you have the potential, but you just have to get to the point where you have opportunity to, exercise that sort of skill set, and before you know it, you blossom in it. You blossom in it. And I think, self-actualization, yes, is a word, but more important to me, I think we all have it in ourselves. And my comment to the young one is, you have so much capability. You are exposed to so much at this age, and you got capacity to do it. And don't box yourself into a little thing and say, because I'm a mechanical engineer, electrical engineer, and a planner. No, 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 no. Rise yourself above that. I mean, I always advocated that the young ones are the future of tomorrow. If you go back into FIDIC now, we got three FIDIC board members who are future leaders. And three future leaders are now in the FIDIC board member because I keep on encouraging them. I mentor them. And I got them to the point where they became board member in FIDIC. You can't do it. I had that opportunity. So my take on the moment is yes, it's self-actualization, but you really have to build that capability as you travel the journey of life. All the experiences around the world gave you confidence to understand different culture, different background, different needs. But at a point in time, you make the tipping point. And I felt the tipping point for me was that crossover. It wasn't the MBA, but the MBA would give me the confidence that I can. I had it in me. That's what I'm saying to my children. None of them's got an MBA, but I tell you, they do much better than I am.
Okay. On to
Sorry, I lost you for a minute there.
moving from delivery to strategic leader.
Sorry, can you repeat the question, please?
Okay, so let me take that again. What challenges did you face moving from delivery to strategic leadership, and how did you overcome them?
I mean, the challenges is really about, being an engineer, you always want to focus about, seeing the project being done and being on the side. But when you move into strategy, you then have to divorce yourself from certain level and allow people who are very good at it to deal with it. So the challenge is really being an engineer is moving on to the next level and allowing other people to deal with things you used to deal with. In other words, is that sort of graduation in your career where you have to accept that as you move up the ladder into the strategic area, you have to stay focused on those big picture issues and allow others to step into the position that you used to do. It was very difficult in the early phase of, oh, I'm no longer going on site, oh, I'm no longer involved with the design check, oh, I'm no longer going on site inspection. But I'm now moving into the corporate world. Somebody said to me the other day, "Did you ever miss it?" Yes, I missed. I missed the click. I missed the sort of site, kick you get. But at the end of the day, you get another boss somewhere where 1 minute you are talking to the minister, the day after you're talking to prime minister. So it's about, it's about graduation in career path. So it is a challenge to let go your old things that you used to do, but you then you've got to allow the young one to move into those steps and then encourage them and mentor them so that they can do it better and even do it better than you do. So there are challenges, but there are opportunity as well. Are you still with me?
Yes, I'm right here. So I would ask my final question. If you had 30 seconds to give your younger self one piece of advice before stepping into leadership, what would it have been?
Oh, work hard, work hard, work
Mm.
hard. Get your education, get your technical skill, get the experience. Any experience you can get in the field, get it. Don't ever be somebody who pigeonhole themselves. It's really about the broader your experience, the more holistic you can think, understand politics, understand the soft skill, and develop what I call the emotional intelligence. Develop your emotional intelligence capability, because that's how you understand people. You understand what people can do, how they can help you to achieve what you need to do. You need to know your strength, you need to know your weakness, and you need to know how to build it. Your emotional intelligence is critical. Technical skill is great, but working on your emotional intelligence is even more super. It makes you a much, much better professional.
All right. Thank you so much. So I would now open the floor for our audience. Daniel, before you come in, let me quickly read this question from the chat box. It says, thank you, Dr. Ogunshakin, for the inspiring session. I, however, wish to know the profession you would have loved to pursue if you hadn't found yourself in engineering. And this is from Nana Equia.
Nana, good question. Good question. um, People say I'm a money man. Other people say I'm a good potential politician.
Hmm.
Um, but I tell people that when I read the history about Brunel, I learned very quickly in my early days that a good engineer is good at so many things if you open your mind up. If you haven't read the history of Brunel, great engineer. He was a good philosopher. He was a good engineer. He was a good politician. He's a good financier and a good economist. In other words, he understands what society needs. And if you ask me, I've tried to be a cut of both of them to understand the money side, to understand the politics, to understand engineering. But if you ask me, what am I? I'm an engineer. And I like to be an engineer. But I like to be in a position where I can be invited to the table. And if they don't invite me to the table, I create my own table.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you for creating your own table. So there's another question in the chat box, but I'll quickly attend to Daniel, then I can come back to it. So Daniel, if you're ready with your question, kindly come through.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ogunshakin, for this wonderful presentation. This is what we really need on a Monday morning. So one key takeaway for me is when you said the more you push, the more you are willing to do. It really speaks to me about a growth mindset we should have as young engineers. And then you also mentioned that as consultants, we often have to lead the client. That's by translating their vision into a clear design. So I want to ask, in situations where the client is a governmental agency in our part of the world, how do we navigate the complexities such as the bureaucracy and all the others that comes with working with a governmental agency as a client while still delivering value and maintaining our professional integrity as consultants?
Daniel, that's a very, very profound question. And I have to congratulate you for raising that question. Believe it or not, you may think, excuse me, that that question is only applicable to emerging country or developing country. Believe it or not, it's actually applicable to, so-called developed country. I mean, I think the message that I pick up from there is that you have to understand that politicians come and go. Most of the time, they claim they know the subject, but the reality of it, they don't know the subject. So you've got to try and put yourself in their mind and find a way to be their advisor without telling them that's what you're doing. So you create an environment where you are helping them to achieve their goal, but at the same time, you are also helping yourself to achieve your goal. It's a win-win situation. I've had that experience in UK where the government will come in, they win the election, 5 years, somebody without any engineering or infrastructure experience whatsoever becomes Secretary of State for Transport. What audacity they have to actually start to say, this is the road. They rely on the secretariat to support them. And in most cases, they would make a profound statement publicly without profound, research. So the best way to do is, once you are working with them, get to know them very well as much as you can, and find a way where you become a confidant, where they can come to you to advise them. And even sometime you may write a discussion paper for them to think and put their name on it. It doesn't matter as long as the job get done. So the trick to it, this is where I said to you, Brunel is brilliant. He was a good politician. He's a good engineer. He knows how to advocate. And the trick of it is really keep on doing what you're doing. Be good at that. Because if you're not good on your delivery, you wouldn't have any platform to engage them for you to become an advisor to them. So my approach I've taken with the politician is I get to know them, get close to them, actually give them a lot of document for them to enable them to look more prettier than I am. That way, they look good, I look good, but the job get done.
Great. Daniel, are we good, please?
Yes, we are so good. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. It may be difficult in Ghana, but try. I know a few of your ministers, and trust me, I think if you get close to them very well and you advise them properly, they will find you very resourceful.
Yes, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doc. So still within the political terrain, our second message says, thank you, Dr. Ogunshakin, for sharing such a rich and authentic journey. Could you kindly share your approach to navigating politically sensitive projects while upholding transparency and public trust?
Another very
That is
good
from
question.
Chelsea. That's from Chelsea.
Okay, so another very good question. Politically sensitive project while navigating. Well, put it this way, I think, I'll give you two examples. In UK, we had to deal with a project called Crossrail. It's now Elizabeth Line. And the truth of the matter is we started the project with about 17 billion on the budget, and the government came back to us and they said take 2 billion out of it, and became 15 billion. Eventually, the project finished at 18 billion. So really, if you think about it, we were 1 billion over our original budget. Politically sensitive in the sense that the politicians don't want to accept they got it wrong. Okay? And then you have to find a way to navigate, and persuade them to understand that, look, what you are getting is true, but you find a way to give them the narrative, and I use the word the narrative, for them to use in their parliament, in their discussion, so that they can carry their constituent along. That is the Western way of looking at it. I think let me put it, the African way of looking at it, there may be some project where the government or the department is asking you to do X, but in fact, there is X minus item, which is supposedly a kickback. How do you deal with that? I think, in most cases, you really have to stand your ground. I was in a situation in Indonesia where, we knew if we were to do anything that is not transparent and is not within the law, we'd be debarred by the World Bank. And the best thing we did was really walk away from the project. We said, we are not going to do this project because on one hand, we are asked to pitch for a project. We pitched for the project, and there was supposed to be a kickback, which the client was asking, not directly, indirectly. We insisted we are not going to do that. And the World Bank was involved with the process, and we excluded ourselves in that particular deal. But the beauty about it is by so doing, you keep your integrity. So in the West, it's really about navigating the political landscape to make sure the narrative is correct and they don't see that they've made a mistake. But in the emerging countries, and it's not just African issue, it happens in Asia, it happens in different parts of the world, where there are issues to do with kickback. You really have to be careful that you don't get yourself into position. The best thing to do is to walk away from it. I know it's very difficult, especially when you are desperate to get that job. How do you deal with it? The way to do it with that is stand your ground and be professional and say, look, we are not going to do this project. And sometimes it's better for you to come out of it because at the end of the day, you are putting your professional integrity at question by doing a job, compromising your quality, and then you find that later it might come back and bite you. Don't do it.
All right. So, Chelsea, Yes, just Sha says she's very satisfied with her response. So wow. Okay, so I have quite a number of questions here. So from Yvonne Droa, she says, thank you, Doc Ogunshakin. As a leader in a traditionally male-dominated sector like the what advice would you give to underrepresented professionals, especially women seeking to lead in similar environments?
Hey, look, there's more women on the planet than men. That's number one. Number two, they're better, much better, more cohesive, more well structured. The advice is, hey, look, put yourself out there. Put yourself out there. Don't let the male dominating issue discourage you. Stay focused, and don't let the industry prejudice, put you down. There's huge opportunity for female in our sector. I'm a big advocate. When I was in AC, I got the first, female chair in 100 years of the association. And in the case of FIDIC, I got the first female president before I left them. So if they can do it, you can do it. I have a lovely daughter who is my first daughter. She's not an engineer, but she's working for BP and she's head of risk. And I always said to her, if he can do it, you can do it. You just have to stay focused. Don't be intimidated by the situation, but by forthright. You've got the talent. Please, please don't get discouraged. My advice to you, yes, it is a male-dominated sector, but again, if you live in UK like I do, in our sector, you can turn around and say it's white-dominated sector. But if you are black, whether you are male or female, doesn't matter. You are being discriminated on. If you take the wider issue and say, construction industry, engineering industry is male dominated, where's the role for women? There is fantastic role. And in fact, they are trailblazer. They're doing fantastic job. I've got quite a number of them on my mentoring list that I mentor, and they're doing very well. So please don't get discouraged. Keep on, working hard at it and put yourself in position. And all the future leader female I've seen in Africa, you're all brilliant. So stay with it. Stay with it.
Okay, so thank you. And a continuation, this is from Beryl Adumabwenya. She says, thank you, Doc. This has been such an inspiring insight. I fondly remember meeting you and your wife in Zambia, a moment that truly highlighted your deep commitment to family. May I ask, were there times when your professional responsibilities came into conflict with family life? If so, how did you manage to navigate those moments?
Yes, there are moments I can tell you there are moments where they came into. I get a signposted earlier on where I have to work in London and I have to go to London Monday to Friday. But I know that weekend is family. So Friday evening I have to be back in Birmingham on time to go and join the kids at the swimming pool. And I did that religiously. Weekend when I'm at home, devoted to the family, and you have to do that. And I suspect, at a point in time when you start going through the career path. And you said that you met my wife, and she's always with me. People used to think that I'm actually married to a white lady or something like that, but I kept on calling Helen, Helen. And at a point in time, I find that the best way I can do is just to make sure I'm on the straight and narrow, is to make sure she's with me most of my event time. And to be honest, I've been so blessed. She's been very supportive, and my wife's always with me. I did it for 7 years with FIDIC. We traveled to Zambia. We were in
Yeah.
Lagos together. We always travel together, and we make sure that even if I have to travel in economy class, so that both of us are together, we do it. And it's that compromise that I think helps. But the beauty about that is that family is everything. And without the family, you find that if you're not happy at home, you can never be happy at what you do. So getting that right is fundamental for me. And I've been lucky and I've been blessed with good partner, and she's always accompanied me. And even though she spent 28 years in the bank, I have to encourage her to say, look, if I'm going to do this global trot and travel around the world, I need my queen with me. And she did abandon 28 years to join me on the Phoenix Trail, and it's been a blessing. So I'm so blessed. So there were moments, but to be honest, I think one is always being guided to make sure you do the right thing at the right time.
All right, thank you. I know that conversation is getting very interesting, but we have about a minute to go. P4OX, I see your hand up. I'll take this one quickly from Jacqueline. And she says, thank you, Doc. It is always inspiring to hear you speak. My question is with the current transformation in the infrastructure sector, in the areas of technology advancement. Answers, yes. Jacqueline is very keen on issues of sustainability. What skills do young professionals require to stay relevant?
Look, it's not just sustainability issue. AI, big one. AI, big one. Technology, big one. The skills, I talked about it again and again. Please don't be dogmatic and stay in one silo sector in our engineering. Sustainability, renewable, making use of natural issue. I mean, the sustainability development goal is there. It's a challenge for the world. If we have to achieve decarbonizing infrastructure, if we have to reduce our impact on the ozone layer, if we have to build a better society for our children and grandchildren, then we all have to work very hard about it. So open your mind up, learn as much as you can on issue about renewable. We are blessed in Africa with abundant sunshine. How do we take that natural resources and use it wisely? How do we actually make sure that our immersion in terms of carbon emission, we reduce that? I mean, to me, I think it's a golden opportunity for us to revitalize the way we engineer, infrastructure. And I think the need for infrastructure to be more sustainable is growing. Africa is very well placed. And I know for sure that quite a lot is going on across West Africa, and African Development Bank is very much pioneering that. So I will encourage that the skill set you need is to think outside the box. How do we find a good solution that is less expensive, use natural resources as much as possible, and is more sustainable? In fact, using what I call nature-based solution is one of the things that we need to look at. You talk about solar. If you can get the lithium in Africa, why do we need to burn a lot of gas? Why do we need to burn a lot of hydrocarbon to get energy when we can get natural resources? So please look beyond the traditional engineering solution. Let's look at creative opportunity where we can build a society that's much better. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doc. So P4OX, if you're available, kindly ask your question.
Oh, yes, please. Yeah, Doc, it's so good to see you after so many years. We met at an ACE event many years ago in London. You're still looking young. We thank God for you, for your life.
Thank you.
Yeah, just a quick one. What's your retirement plan?
Good one. Well, my retirement plan is that you guys will invite me to Ghana.
Right.
And I will have a sort of a holiday home where I can spend 3 months in a year in Ghana, 3 months in Nigeria, 3 months in Dubai, and 3 months in UK. What about that?
No worries.
I'm working on that.
We'll make that happen. We'll make that happen.
Yes.
Nice one.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm working on that, but I think the demand is still there. I mean, the HS2 project is going to go for another 3 years, and I'm still working on the infrastructure projects in Africa, including Ghana. But the answer to the question is, I'm working gradually away from full-time executive role that I'm going to do portfolio. I'm sure that if I disappear off the planet, you guys won't be very happy. So I still need to maintain so that I can keep you guys happy. What about that?
Well noted. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, PX4X. So in the comment section from Engineer Edward Melome, he says, consider it done.
Oh.
So you can come and peacefully retire in Ghana. Constromat has got your back, Doc.
Thank you very much for the offer. You will see me in Ghana very soon. You just need to invite me. In fact, I had quite a number of invites by your ministers. So I'm looking forward to a visit to Ghana. So I'll let you take control of that. Less of it now. More of Nelson and Africa. Let's do the African thing. Okay?
Yes, great. So thank you so much. It's actually been a pleasure and an honor hosting you this morning. And on behalf of the K&E team, we are super grateful to have you do this with us. I feel inspired and empowered this morning. And I want to believe it goes for my colleagues and the audience as well. So let's keep the conversations going on our LinkedIn pages. And Dr. Nelson, thank you so much for being with us and sharing this insights with us. And thank you all for also joining. And we look forward to welcoming you to our next K&E series session on the 14th, where we will explore another insightful topic on technology. And in the meantime, kindly follow us on LinkedIn and our other social media platforms at Construmat Africa to stay engaged. Thank you so much. We hope to do this again very